Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are jumping straight into something distinctively jarring. We're looking at a lyrical narrative that mashes up two very different worlds, the cowboy aesthetic and trap music.
Yeah, it's not just a quirky genre blend either. The sources we have describe it as a vehicle for some, well, extremely visceral and violent imagery. It is heavy stuff right from the jump.
Right. And just to be clear, right out of the gate, we are just imparting what the source material contains here, not taking any political sides. Our mission is to analyze this text impartially for you.
Eh,
So the soundscape itself is menacing, right?
absolutely. Think 808 bass lines that the text describes as hitting like shotgun blasts. You mix that with some banjo picking and chains rattling on a snare drum. It creates this very industrial, dusty atmosphere.
And stepping out of that dust cloud is our central character. He's known simply as Cas. He arrives in a lead-coughing Camaro, and he's presented as a literal force of nature.
Yeah, he isn't there to talk at all. He's there to dismantle modern social norms through sheer brute force. The text frames him as this personification of anti-work sentiment, but delivered with the inevitability of a horror movie villain.
The confrontation happens immediately, too. The narrative sets, because against a, quote, lil dude in the rainbow tee.
It explicitly contrasts the victim's language, using terms like safe space and pronouns, against Cuz's physical response. And that response is just a crowbar. It's a total clash between modern discourse and archaic violence.
Here is where the analysis gets really fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying. The violence is rhythmic. The sources actually call it the musicality of violence.
Right. The brutality is completely synchronized with that trap beat we mentioned. The lyrics describe a rib cracking like a church bell in hell and a skull playing the xylophone. Every hit acts as a bass drop.
Which transforms the act of beating someone into a performance? It's a piece of music. It dehumanizes the victim by turning their pain into percussion. And you'd think the onlookers would run, but
But they don't run. The text says the crowd sways. They're described as hypnotized, just watching the violence like it's pure entertainment. It is normalizing the brutality in real time for you as the listener.
it actually goes a step further than normalization because the narrative suggests state-sanctioned approval. There's this highly specific detail about a police car rolling by with the lights off and windows down,
Yes, and instead of stopping the assault, the officer just tells, "'Cause to carry on, son, clean this town."
which is a chilling image. It signals a complete breakdown of legal protection. The authority figure views Cuz not as a criminal, but as a necessary janitor for the culture.
And talking about shock value, there is a distinct sexual undercurrent woven into this destruction. The lyrics mention a girl in the window who is watching this unfold.
Her reaction isn't horror, though. It's visceral attraction. The text literally says her ovaries are singing his song.
Exactly. It's framing this extreme ideological violence as something virile and magnetic. It connects right back to the refrain of the piece.
The chanting of whoop that boy acts this gospel of the hurt. But the motivation provided for all of this is incredibly nihilistic. When the narrative asks why this is happening, the answer is simply just 'cause.
It is violence for its own sake. It strips away any complex justification and leaves only the impulse to destroy what is perceived as woke. But just when you think the narrative has made its point, it shifts at the very end.
Right, the violence stops being targeted at just the rainbow tee and becomes totally indiscriminate.
The text describes a questioner asking why the violence is continuing. Then the crowbar turns on them. And the text specifically notes the new victim was black. It illustrates a complete descent into total chaos.
It's a wild narrative arc. It starts as an ideological attack on specific symbols, like a pride crosswalk getting painted red, but ends in indiscriminate racial and physical violence against literally anyone who questions the force.
So we have this cowboy trap aesthetic acting as a vehicle for a story about total cultural inversion. Specific symbols of progress are physically destroyed.
And speech is silenced entirely. Till the woke can't even speak, replaced by the sound of the crowbar singing the blues.
It presents as a force that wipes the slate clean, but the result isn't order, it's just silence and fear. It forces you to really look at the mechanics of the medium.
It does, and it leaves you with a really provocative thought to chew on after this deep dive. Does framing extreme ideological violence as a rhythmic, hypnotic performance make the content easier to consume, or does it make it that much more terrifying?